Hey, what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today I wanted to touch on, yet again, another extremely important topic. And I thought to myself, I've actually been thinking about this for a while, but I had a kind of spark situation today, actually just a little while ago, really, that hammered this home to me that I felt would make one of the probably single best videos in RoK history. And I say that because what I'm going to touch on is something that the majority does not think of. The majority does not consider when they are going into a jump project as a solo alliance, as a group of solo players or a group of players. If they are migrating to a kingdom that they think has potential, whether that be as extremely active or maybe as a rebuild or something in the middle. And this is something that I truly believe only will set kingdoms up for failure or high percentage chances of failure. And what we're going to talk about is this idea of not knowing what you really want and knowing what is actually important to you. And I often come across situations where I'll talk with people and I will know them at times, maybe not to say better than they know themselves, to not go into the cliche realm, but more appropriately off the current circumstance, I will know exactly what they should be doing and where they should be based on consistent trends that they have shown, right, through actions and through words. And so today's video is going to be touching on exactly that. How to avoid making a decision that is not really the decision you want to make. And it's going to be focusing not only on the players, on officers, but also leaders. And this is something I think everyone needs to hear because it's something that I see all the time. So let me first, as always, get this out of the way. If you enjoy the content, make sure you sub, like, ring the notification bell. And if you want to join and be a part of our conversation, hit up the Discord. You can find a link to that in the description, pin comment down below. And also remember, we're going to start doing polls too as well on our Rise of Kingdom section. So stay tuned for that. Okay. Seriousness out of the way. Today, I had an occurrence that happened with, and I'm going to give a brief, just small note here. I have a friend, and I've known this person, a while, and they were previously in one of my projects as a lead. Hopefully that keeps the pool wide enough. And so, again, only had good conversations with them, good interactions, was a good person. And they wanted to, they were looking into possibly rejoining, right? Wanted to rejoin my current project that I'm doing. And wanted to reapply to be an R5. And as I'm going through and I'm reading the application, I just couldn't help but notice that there were these flags, right? There were these markers to me. And I immediately thought, wow, this sounds very reminiscent of how this person came in to the previous project that they were a leader in. Except they might just subconsciously have written it more honestly for what they were looking for. But also because I think the questions that we're asking in the application now are different than what we did back then. So I think those two things really factored into it. But what I came to notice, and this is the big thing here, is that they were applying for a project in which they didn't even truly believe in. It doesn't mean that they didn't want to be a part of it. It doesn't mean that they came in with ill intentions. They just didn't really know what they needed, right? They may have felt that they wanted to be a part of the project, but they didn't know what they needed. And there's a big difference between a want and a need. And I'll give you an example. So a part of the application that this person had filled out was that they believed in operating in a different type of governing and kingdom managing system than the one that we are applying for my project. Keep in mind, projects can operate and run different types of systems just as much as kingdoms, right? Once those projects flourish, if they do flourish into kingdoms, or if you're in a kingdom that's already up and running, again, you can have different types of ways that you manage a kingdom and you set up your structures. And it was just very clear that this was not the case for them. And so, we had a conversation. I let them know. I said, hey, I just don't think this is going to be a good fit because of these reasons. And then after, right, the response was good. It was a very amicable response where they understood, yeah, you know what, I think you're right. And, we're going to go and look for something else. And that's the kicker there, right? It's understanding, regardless if you know it in the moment or you figure it out later, what you want, right? But again, almost to the extent of what you need. Because if you don't know what you want, then you're never really going to know what you need, right? Unless someone points it out to you, or you play enough to figure it out yourself, or you have some kind of epiphany. And so I think that part is important, is that I often, and this kind of extends into what I'm going to say now, is that with that prefacing out of the way, I notice this a lot. You'll have leaders, right? You will have, let me just start with members. You'll have members that will join alliances, or they'll look to join kingdoms because they think that's what they want, right? I'm talking for the people that don't know what they want. And those can lead to, I cannot tell you how many challenging moments. You get somewhere and you think to yourself, man, this place is great. Man, I can't wait to migrate here. And then you finally get there and you're hanging out, right? You're still kind of riding that new vibe, new environment high, right? Kind of, if you're moving places, or you're going from one high school to college, or maybe you're getting a house, maybe you got a promotion, you're getting to a new place, or you're just maybe you got a different job somewhere, and you kind of have that. I don't want to say it's like the honeymoon high, but it's kind of that it's that transitioning period, that new thing period, right? Where you're there for a couple weeks, you're hanging out for a minute, and then when things really start settling in, you really start figuring out kind of what is and what isn't. And that is what I think is so important that most players gloss over. And not until you get there is when you really, and I'll say something, and I'm going to expand on this in another video. This often happens with recruitment, right? So when you have people that are recruiting players for kingdoms, they're never going to tell you how it really is there. Let's be honest. I've never seen someone that I've recruited. Well, first off, I recruit very differently, right? Again, if mainly because I do a lot of the recruitment for kingdoms that I'm in. So if I'm ever recruiting you, it's me being very upfront about how things are, so you have a solid understanding. There's a big difference between not being fully transparent with someone or a group of people that are coming to your kingdom so they understand really what's happening. If you are having people that are fighting, or you have some civil wars that are going on, or maybe things are rocky, most of the time, no one is going to disclose that. Why? Because they want to get you over to their kingdom, of course, right? They'd rather you join their kingdom and join their cause or fight for them, or, regardless if things are going well or not. I've had situations where I've recruited people and I've straight up told them, I said, look, this is the current situation. Yeah, do I think that there is a little bit of a rocky part, or do I think this alliance or these two alliances are a little bit rocky? I do. Are we constantly communicating with them? We are. But again, I'd like to give all the information up front so that way they can make a well-informed decision, regardless if they join or not. That's just one side of it. Then you look at the officer side of it, right, or I should say one part of that side. Then you look at the officer side. A lot of players sometimes want to be an officer, and they don't even know what it takes to be an officer, right? Some people just want to be an officer just because of the title. Some people want to be an officer because their friend's an officer. Some people want to be an officer because they think it gives them some kind of accolades, right? Some type of clout, some street cred, if you will, because they're an officer of this alliance or not. and therefore neglecting or just being completely oblivious to the work that they have to do to get in there. And sometimes people join alliances and then they become an officer and they realize, man, I just don't like the way that this leader manages this alliance, even if maybe that leader does a good job. And then maybe on the flip side they don't do a good job. But it really comes down to asking those questions. If you've never played in a if you've never been in a management styled or structured, like well-structured alliance, and you don't have any experience on what to expect, then the best thing for you to do is to get experience, right? Play in a system and see how you like it, support that system, and then figure out, okay, I like the way that I like this type of leadership, R5 management structure, and then you go play in other different types of structures, right? So you can figure out what you like and what you don't like. But at times, you might even find yourself, right, needing to support a system that you don't like, right? If maybe those are your only options, right? If you obviously stayed in that kingdom. And then we get to the next level, which is leading alliances, right? Remembering that not every, bear in mind, there is no guide book on how to lead an alliance, right? Outside of the guide video that I've put out on how to lead an alliance, which is, at least to date, the most comprehensive and detailed video on how to go about leading an alliance in RoK currently. And I can say that confidently, right? I stand by that. I'll stamp that. I'll put my R5 guide video up against anyone else's R5 guide video. And I feel that confidently about it. However, even with saying that, you have to understand that there are different ways, and that might even be a great future video as well, right? Talking about like the different styles and ways to manage an alliance. But there are different ways to do that. And because of that, there's different types of people that will have different styles and approaches that they come into an alliance with on how to go about working with their members. But then you think about, okay, well, what type of kingdom do you want to play? And if you're leading an alliance and you're in a kingdom that you don't believe in, right? And let's say you are not part of the majority, oftentimes, right, it might just be better to move, right, and go to a kingdom in which you do believe in, right? Instead of what often sometimes happens is that those players will start a revolution or have some kind of anarchy that ensues, or they'll start doing things behind the scenes in the shadows, man. And it's wild to see some of the stuff that happens in RoK. But that's an example of what happens if you're just a solo leader. And then let's say you're someone who's looking to join a project or a jumper group as a lead. And you could extend this to officers and members as well, but let's just focus on the second side of looking at leading an alliance. Is you go into a project and you really have to have a good understanding of it. Really believe in what you are joining and what you're being a part of. And that goes all the way from the top of any kingdom level, all the way to, the contributing member. And that is what's important, is knowing what you're joining, knowing what you're being a part of, and then choosing to do that. Right? In this example I gave you of my friend who I have known for a while, joined, right? They joined and specifically applied to be a lead without really truly knowing what they needed. And to them specifically, right, a little bit of what they wanted, right? They may have thought they wanted to be a part of this, but as I had explained in the beginning of the video, it really wasn't what they needed. It wasn't what the individual needed. And that was something that, thankfully, through talking with them, I was able to explain why I felt it was important for them to join something that they really believed in, based on the trend that I was seeing from them being a part of a project and then the words that they wrote in the application. It just lined up. It just made sense. And that's something that I think is important, is that if you haven't played in a lot of different systems, whether that's at the alliance level, the kingdom level, the officer management team level, just being a player and living out your day-to-day life experience in a kingdom level, those are things you have to do. So you can figure out what you will like and what you won't like. So you can be better informed to then make good decisions for what you want. And so anyways, I thought this was a great video to hammer home on that, because I see this happen very often. I don't want to say a lot, but I do see this happen very often, where players, groups will join things that they just don't truly believe in. And sometimes they don't know that they don't truly believe in it until they've been in it for a while. Some other people up front know they don't believe in it, but they might think, well, hey, there's more good things that I like than there is things that I don't like. And that's just not the way to go about it, right? You really want to believe in something, and otherwise, if you don't, do your own thing, right? There's always that option. But what I'm going to do now is I really want to leave the question to you, right? The community. Tell me about a situation in which you've been in where it was either you who had this approach, right? Where maybe you didn't know what you wanted up front, but because of situations that occurred, you then figured out what you needed. Or were you a witness and you noticed this happening with a friend, an officer, another leader, a group, where you saw that because an individual group joined something that they didn't really believe in, or they migrated somewhere that they didn't really believe in, it just turned out bad. And again, I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear your experience on what happened, how it happened, if it's exactly related, if it's closely related. Let me know down there in the comments, because I think this is really important for people to hear and to understand, because I imagine that there's quite a few of us that have had quite a few of these situations, even if it's just one or more, that have occurred just through our playing experience, especially for those that have played in multiple kingdoms. So again, I'd love to read those. I always try and read all of my comments, and I especially love reading the long stories as well, because I think oftentimes that's where we can get a lot of the best context surrounding what actual life is like and can be in a kingdom here in RoK. So that is it for me. As always, I hope you all enjoy. Until next time, I'll catch you later.